Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, your government has announced immediate response grants for people impacted by Cyclone Fina. According to your government's fact sheets, grants of $309 per child, $661 per adult and $1,537 per family are available to cover the cost of basic needs like food, transport, medical supplies and clothing. This does sound great and we support that as the opposition, but Chief Minister, in order to access these grants, you need to have been evacuated by the Northern Territory Government during the cyclone or not attended an emergency cyclone shelter. So, based on this criteria, virtually no Territorian is eligible for your Gammon grant. No one in Darwin, no one in the Tiwi Islands, no one in a rural area, no one in the Northern Territory. Chief Minister, before you start pointing the finger, please make it very clear. While the Commonwealth grants contribute to funding towards this payment, the NT Government decides the eligibility criteria. Will you come clean and explain why your grants are a stunt?
Chief Minister.
Madam Speaker, do you know what is a stunt? It's the opposition leader. She is a total joke. We have just had a Category 3 cyclone, Madam Speaker, and all the opposition have done is try to blame other people for not doing the very best job. And what we know is that when she was in government, they did the most deplorable job during Cyclone Marcus. So you want to play games around power and water, and I hope you ask the Treasurer a question about that today, because is he ready for you, come in spinner? You want to come into this parliament and throw mud. I have actually just been out at the Welfare Centre checking in on the hard-working Department of Children and Families staff who are out there. We've got NDIS out there, Services Australia, Multicultural NT out there, TIO, Red Cross, a number of organisations. And people are lined up because they're accessing the $250 immediate relief payment that we brought online from 9 o'clock this morning, Madam Speaker. And people have been coming in because they need that urgent funding to be able to buy food for their families. And we're very proud to have stood that up very quickly yesterday. Now, I met with Minister Bain, I think it was 2 days ago now. She came to Darwin and they activated their funding. And ultimately, those 3 tiers of funding are now in place. But I will pass on to the Minister for Children and Families, because they are doing the welfare component of our emergency response, to provide some further details to the opposition leader. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Children and Families.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chief Minister. I can confirm that the eligibility requirement for the $250 relief payment is linked to loss of power, and that goes to for more than 72 hours. So anybody as of today who is still without power, and the confirmation of that is being done by Power and Water, where there are some issues around households where the street may have been restored but the house still has not been restored because of issues with their electricity supply within the boundaries of their household. Power and Water are working with them to verify that they are still without power, and they have been advised that once that's confirmed, they will be eligible for the $250 payment. I can tell you that as of about an hour, 12 p.m. today, 339 individual people have been through the doors of the Welfare Recovery Centre, representing 134 households, and 22 payments have been processed. With the remaining people, they're having their ability to actually access this payment processed, and then anyone who's lost an item in like a fridge or a freezer, when they prove evidence of that, then they will also be able to obtain some compensation from that, from the Northern Territory Government, not from the Commonwealth Government.
Member for Karama, what is your question?
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, the latest NT crime statistics show substantial reductions across offence categories and significant improvements in communities right across the Territory, which is consistent with the positive feedback that I and other MLAs are receiving from residents in our electorates. Unlike the former Labor government, which presided over rising crime, our government has made reducing crime its top priority. Chief Minister, can you please update the House on the latest crime data and explain what these positive trends mean for Territorians who are finally seeing real progress?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And to the member for Karama, I know this is the single biggest issue that your community cares about, and I know that means it's the single biggest issue that you care about. And it's certainly you and I have regular conversations around the way law and order is going, and it's starting to show some real results for our community and give that reprieve that the people in your electorate so desperately want and deserve. And so as we compare the crime data to last year, now I want to make it explicitly clear for those people who are cynical about data. The CLP has not changed the way we capture data. Labor created a new police system, but we have now got 2 full years under that new system. So beyond 2 years, we cannot compare. But for the last 2 years, we are absolutely comparing apples with apples. And when you do, those apples are pretty shiny now. Member for Karama, I can tell you. We have seen the number of victims drop when you compare January to January to September this year to January-September last year, apples with apples, a decline in 8.3%. That is 1,635 less victims of crime this year compared to last. And again, Madam Speaker, that in and of itself speaks volumes about the way we have approached the top priority of Territorians, and that is community safety. We've backed in our police, we've done the right thing, and we're seeing territory-wide huge results. House break-ins territory-wide are down 25%, commercial break-ins 22%, robbery 19%, assaults 3%. In Greater Darwin area, house break-ins are down 38%. They've nearly halved. And that is all a result of the strong action that we took straight away. We walked into this parliament on October, just 2 months after coming into government, and passed an entire reducing crime package on urgency through the parliament. Declan's Law has done an incredible job in stopping that revolving door of bail and making sure that people who do the wrong thing stay behind bars, Madam Speaker. We have done a power of work. We've backed in our police with the best pay deal in 20 years. And we continue to do that work. Just today, we announced that banned drinker orders, which police issue to people on the spot, will go from 7 days of no grog to 28 days of no grog. And that is going to make a big difference, particularly at this time of year when we know we see those seasonal spikes. I want to thank our police. I am so proud to be the police minister. They're doing an incredible job. The Attorney General is getting the courts working better, and boy, is that a mission. The Deputy Chief Minister has found more beds than you could have ever believed, or mattresses, I should say, so that people doing the wrong thing have a comfy bed on the floor. And, Madam Speaker, we're going to keep this focus because law and order is our #1 priority, and this is just the beginning.
Deputy Opposition Leader, Member for Daly, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. Minister, 1 year into your government, nearly 5,000 public servants, including nurses, allied health, pharmacists and other frontline health workers, have voted against your EBA. 12 months on, with code yellows, staff shortages and exhausted clinicians, can you point to anything you've actually done to improve pay, fix unsafe workloads or stop the exodus of health professionals?
Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Daly for the question. And when we talk about pay, we talk about conditions of service, and what we do know in the health system, Madam Speaker, is that our staff on the front line, and they've just demonstrated over the last 3 or 4 days in the middle of a cyclone, the commitment to their work right across the Northern Territory. But here in Darwin, Madam Speaker, we had roughly about 700 to 800 of our frontline staff bunkered down at the hospital in the middle of a cyclone, doing the job for Territorians, doing the job for the patients, the staff, visitors, looking after everybody in the health system. So for the member for Daly to come in here and talk about what's been done, what hasn't been done, is absolutely appalling, because we know that our health staff are facing the biggest battle here in the Northern Territory because we are underfunded $200 million under the National Health Reform Agreement. $200 million. Now let's talk about aged care. 60 to 80 patients every day of the week are in our hospitals because they haven't got an aged care facility here in Darwin. We've had the federal member, we've had Labor talking about this for year on year. They promised $60 million in March, April this year. Has it been delivered? No. Well, of course it hasn't, because we've had the federal member for Solomon banging on about Audi rather than talking about...
Take your seat, please, Minister. What is your point of order, Member for Daly?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 110 relevance. My question was directly about the EBA negotiations, and I asked where they are at. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, can you make your comments relevant, please?
They are relevant, and what the member for Daly can't see, Madam Speaker, is the relevance between us being $400 million underfunded by the Commonwealth versus what he's expecting or what people are expecting to be paid in the health system. Now, if he can't see any direct correlation between us having $400 million short in the health system versus paying conditions for the staff, then something is seriously wrong, because when we look at the health system, $200 million short under the National Health Reform Agreement, we're 6% behind the national average. The national average. There's no equity across the country when it comes to health funding. Now, $40 million a year we're spending on aged care, $51 million a year for the CareFlight contract. We're $95 million short when it comes to primary health care here in the Northern Territory.
Take your seat, please,
so when we
Minister.
talk about
Take
funding...
your seat, please, Minister. What's your point of order, Opposition Leader?
Standing Order 110, specifically about the EBA, which is the Northern Territory responsibility.
Please continue, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's clear to me that you've got the opposition leader, the deputy opposition leader, that can't see any correlation between the Northern Territory being underfunded $400 million versus paying conditions for staff here in the Northern Territory. Absolutely appalling. Coming in here, what you should be doing is advocating for more funding rather than coming in here and criticising our frontline staff. Get on the front foot and start asking for some funding.
Opposition Leader. Member for Blaine.
Thank you,
Just pause. Silence. Member for Blaine, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Alcohol Policy. Minister, the CLP government has been delivering on our promise to reduce crime and keep Territorians safe. We've introduced a raft of laws aimed at putting victims ahead of offenders. We have the country's strongest bail laws, created ram raid and social post and boast laws, as well as protecting frontline workers. The Territory's latest crime statistics covering January to September this year, compared with the same period last year, show an 8.3 reduction in victims of crime, with 1,635 fewer Territorians becoming victims. But we know this is not job done, and we continue to work hard to keep Territorians safe. What new actions are we taking to reduce crime and, in particular, alcohol-fuelled violence? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Alcohol Policy.
And I thank the member for Blaine for this in question, because I know the member for Blaine has been absolutely pushing for these sort of reforms across alcohol-related crime for ever since he was elected. And it's not only alcohol-related crime; it's the antisocial behaviour in public housing, it's the drinking in public places, it's the drinking in common areas of public housing. So, Madam Speaker, the CLP is indeed, we are delivering on our commitment to keep Territorians safe and reduce crime. We announced this morning that we are further increasing the public drinking bans, the 7-day ban drinker orders, from 7 days to 28 days. That will come into force next month. This gives police an additional tool to combat alcohol-fuelled violence and crime and further protect our community. Earlier this year in Katherine, police undertook an operation to drive down crime. It resulted in a 354% increase in banned drinker orders issued. During that period, the community saw a significant reduction in crime. So, Madam Speaker, we will bring to Parliament this week on urgency changes to the Alcohol Harm Reduction Act to give effect to this important change. The Police Commissioner has welcomed these changes and has welcomed the extended booze ban as police gear up for summer operations. And we know how critical this is, particularly in Alice Springs, Madam Speaker, leading into that summer period. Is absolutely critical that we have the resources, the legislation and the policy settings right. Madam Speaker, Police have said that public drinking continues to remain our biggest catalyst for overall assaults and domestic violence, so we must continue to take action. We know that the summer period in Alice Springs will be busy, and we want police to have the tools that they need to do the job, to keep Territorians safe and reduce alcohol-fuelled violence. The change to the BDO is part of the BDR review, and for those in the chamber, our party is delivering on another election commitment. We've reviewed the banned drinker register. We've come up with a clear pathway to increase from 7 days to 28 days those banned drinker orders. Extending those from 7 to 28 days sends a clear signal that alcohol-fuelled violence simply won't be tolerated and the offenders face real consequences for their actions. Extending BDOs not only restricts harmful behaviour, Madam Speaker, but it also gives people the opportunity to get help. Now, this is important because we often talk about supply measures. We're dealing with demand issues as well. 28 days gives that person an opportunity to get help, seek participation in a therapeutic program to get help for their addiction. Overall, Madam Speaker, we will continue to take action. We will put the rights of victims first, and putting this in place will certainly assist the community. Thank you.
Member for Arafura, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Public Service. It's 64 days since our hard-working public servants overwhelmingly voted down your pay offer. Many who have worked overtime to get the top end back on its feet after Cyclone Fina. When will you actually recognise the contributions that our public servants make to the Territory and come to the table with a decent offer around their pay and conditions?
Minister for Public Service.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the member for Arafura for the question. And yes, whilst on this side of the chamber we absolutely recognise the hard work that our public servants do each and every day, Madam Speaker. And we've just seen through Cyclone Fina, not only, our frontline workers, it was, the education, we had the Territory Families people out there, we had the emergency services people out there, the health sector. We've just heard from the Minister for Health on how hard those staff were working in the hospitals over the weekend with Cyclone Fina, getting, all the staff and people sorted in the hospital system there. So we absolutely recognise the hard work that these professionals do, and I note that the interjections, you can actually wait until I've finished, Opposition Leader, you'll get your turn. So there has been an offer that has gone out, Madam Speaker. This Friday there will be another offer going out to these, in this general consent agreement. So there was an agreement that went out. It did actually go to a vote. It was voted down, and then it went to the Fair Work. It has come back. Negotiations have been happening again, and this Friday it will go out again to a further vote. So I look forward to seeing what that vote is. It is a very generous offer. What the opposition fail to see is that whilst they are in government and racked up a debt to astronomical proportions, Madam Speaker, we are constrained under a wages policy. And so we are being very responsible. We have to be managing the budget. The Treasurer, talks about that all the time. So we need to make sure that what we are doing is responsible and that we are not hiking up the debt even further because of the previous Labor government. So at the end of the day, it will go out this Friday. Our policy is actually higher than what the previous Labor government were when they were in government. They only had a 2% pay increase.
Silence.
We have a 3%, which is above CPI. So, they might like to actually think about the questions that they're asking, because I know on this side of the House we are very responsible. We are fiscally responsible to make sure that we spend Territorians' taxpayers' dollars responsibly, Madam Speaker.
Member for Johnston, the birthday girl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question's to the Attorney-General. Attorney General, this year your government gave millions of dollars in extra demand pressure funding to the lower courts, to the DPP and Legal Aid NT, all to manage pressures created by your own expensive legislative and policy changes. Yet you provided nothing to NAJA, which represents the majority of people before our criminal courts and is proportionally already funded well below Legal Aid NT. Attorney General, why did you fail to give the Aboriginal Legal Aid Service additional funding, and what will you do to close the funding gap so NAJA clients receive at least the same level of funding support as legal aid clients?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Member for Johnston, I know that you're new in this parliament, and when I became the Attorney General, there was a lot to look into as well, especially the shambles that Labor left the government, the public
leader.
taxpayer money in. But NAJA itself is fully funded by the feds. The whole of what the NAJA service provides is funded by the federal government. In fact, in the paper, I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe just before we started to hear about the cyclone coming, the Attorney General, Michelle Rowland, was asked if she would top up NAJA's funding at all, and she was very clear with her answer and said that they actually did provide additional funding in a long-term agreement, which is something that our government was able to finish negotiations on upon coming to government. So she was very clear that they've already had a huge uplift, as has Legal Aid. They had a huge uplift last year when we came to government. They were in a shambles, and that was because the NAJA was imploding, and so of course Legal Aid was taking on all of that work. So we met those requests for the demand that was obviously being increased, not only from our new laws, which we needed to absolutely do, but just because in general they had been underfunded by Labor for so long. And so we met those demands. We increased that funding by a historic amount of 87% increase to their baseline funding. That was a huge amount. That doesn't mean just 1 year or one-off or just here, have that money as a Band-Aid solution. That's ongoing funding year in, year out. Of course, we know they have new leadership. They have that dedicated funding that's ongoing, and of course there's still work to be done in that space, and they have a really important job to do to make sure they can make the changes in their organisation to do that, which is what Territorians expect NAJA to do as well with the funding that they've received. They've received a huge uplift from the feds, 100% federal funding over that side, and they too are expected for Territorians, based on taxpayers' money, that they are able to work within their means based on the money they have.
I'd like to acknowledge in the gallery the member for Johnston's mother, Dina, and her partner, Kit, who are here to be with her on her birthday, obviously. And her husband, I can't... and her husband. Member for Fong Lim, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education and Training. Minister, we know Territorians are seeing changes taking shape across our middle schools, and these reforms are generating a great deal of excitement and optimism in the community after years of frustration with a system that clearly wasn't delivering. We're finally seeing families able to see some action and certainty and a clear plan for our higher education system, our secondary education system. Minister, can you update the House on the progress that the CLP government is making on secondary school reforms, and tell us how these changes will improve outcomes for students? Can you tell us how we will strengthen pathways to jobs and deliver the modern year 7 to 12 system that Territorians have long been calling for?
Minister for Education and Training.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the member for Fong Lim for the question. And, Madam Speaker, we are delivering reforms in the secondary education, and that will start next year. And we know, I've spoken many times in the House here about the fact that we have spoken to schools in Alice Springs. Those schools will come online in 2027, but the schools here in Darwin will be making changes as of next year. Labor failed to fix a middle school model they knew was failing, but, we are acting on their inaction.
Silence.
In our year of action, certainty and security, we're putting Territory students and families first by replacing the outdated middle school model with a modern, comprehensive 7 to 12 that delivers real pathways to real jobs. From Term 1 2026, we've got Nightcliff Middle School, which will become Nightcliff High School under Principal Eva Kokomagoulis. Dripstone Middle will become Dripstone Secondary College, led by current Principal Nectaria Pikoulis. Sanderson Middle School will become Sanderson High under the continued leadership of Robert McIntosh. Casuarina Senior College will retain its current name and principal Glenn Dixon. Palmerston College will be replaced by 2 new schools, the Driver Secondary School under Maisie Floyd and Rosebery Secondary School to be led by current head of campus Christy Bainan. Darwin Middle and Darwin High, as I've said, they will transition through next year. It's a lot bigger school. They have a lot more changes to happen. In March, they'll get a new school board when they go to an AGM. The principal there is going to be Annette Peterson, and that transition is being led by Annette Peterson. And also they will go from Darwin Middle and Darwin High to Darwin High School. So we are supporting this transformation, Madam Speaker, with $3 million capital transition fund. Upgrades will support senior secondary curriculum to enable on-site vet delivery, new signage, essential infrastructure improvements to make sure that every school is fit for purpose. And our government will make sure that this transition into this comprehensive secondary school will deliver real jobs with real pathways to real jobs for the students of the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Casuarina, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Deputy Chief Minister and Minister for Corrections. Can the Minister please update the House on how the Department of Correction is working to strengthen prisoner transport and custody services outside the prison perimeter, including court management in Darwin and Alice Springs, hospital seats, medical escorts, and prison movements to and from Katherine? Can the Minister outline the role of G4S in supporting these services, the benefit of their local recruitment and training efforts, and how this initiative is helping redeploy anti-correctional officers back to frontline duties within our prisons to support daily operations, rehabilitations, programs, and employment activities? Minister, how does this reflect the government's commitment to innovate and collaborative corrections reforms?
Minister for Corrections, Deputy Chief Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Casuarina for the question, because I know how he rates it's such important to keep the community safe, Madam Speaker, and having a strong correctional system allows us to keep the community safe. So I thank him for his interest in the question, because he knows that we keep Territorians safe on this side of the House, unlike the previous Labor government did, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we've partnered with G4S to enhance prisoner transport, custody and court management services right across the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker. We're building this partnership to have local people working here, creating jobs for Territorians right here in the Northern Territory to allow us to strengthen the community correction system and also the correction system in its entirety, Madam Speaker. These initiatives involve efficiency and safety and, more importantly, Madam Speaker, freeing up correctional officers to do their job in behind the wire to allow them to concentrate on rehabilitation and industry for the correction detainees who are in there for a reason. And we want to make sure that we don't just pack them and sack them like the previous Labor government, Madam Speaker. We want to make sure that there's training and rehabilitation to those people so they can make better choices for their life and come out and keep the community safe. Madam Speaker, we just last week, in fact, I was at a graduation for 21 new trainees for a local Territorians. In fact, Madam Speaker, I knew one of the trainees personally. I've known him since he was a young fella. He's been in the Northern Territory his entire life. He was born here, and his mother was there as well. And she was so proud to see him, a local Territorian, going through the training course, graduating on that day, to be able to have a future moving forward, not just a one job, Madam Speaker. This partnership with G4S allows a line of promotion, the line of work to work up into senior roles as he progresses and as he trains in that system, Madam Speaker. In fact, the week after I was there, there was another 24 trainees, Madam Speaker. So now G4S has 68 staff here in the Northern Territory. That's 68 locals here who've got jobs to keep the Territory safe, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know that G4S are working in the courts here in Darwin, and some good news, Madam Speaker. In the first week or so of December, they will be transitioning into the court in Alice Springs. And Madam Speaker, and let me tell you why that's so important, Madam Speaker, because that's going to free up frontline police officers to be out there on the street, on the beat, keeping the community safe. Madam Speaker, we have been working hard over the last 15 months to do that, and the crime stats show that. I know the Chief Minister went through them, but they're so important I think we need to read through again. Down 25% for commercial break-ins, so house break-ins. Commercial break-ins down 22. These figures are going down, Madam Speaker, because we are working hard. But, Madam Speaker, there's a lot more work to be done, and we will continue to work hard to keep the community safe and strengthen our correction system.
Member for Daly, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. Minister, there has been an increase in sexual violence in our community, including online, with perpetrators using technology to stalk, groom and share people's images without consent. Minister, there is nothing in your strategy to address this. Can you explain why your domestic, family and sexual violence strategy completely fails to address sexual violence through prevention and early intervention strategies?
Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Member for Daly, for that question. It's very timely that you asked that question because, Madam Speaker, yesterday was the first day of the 16 Days of Activism, which is an international anti-domestic violence campaign. And guess what they're focusing on this year, Madam Speaker? Digital violence. And this approach has been absolutely embraced by the Department of Children and Families. They are rolling out resources across the territory to alert people to the dangers and the risks and the very real issues that kids are facing in this space. It's a horrendous situation that our young people are facing, that they can't even be certain that today their friend is not tomorrow going to become their enemy and turn an image very innocently taken into an image that is horrendously embarrassing and sexual exploitation. So I would refute the claim that the department and the strategy doesn't take into account that very real threat to our kids and to our community more generally, because there is no limit on where we will look to actually address where violence comes from. There is a very broad agenda in the education space. There are a number of really very strong not-for-profits and non-government organisations who are working to provide some incredible education into school programs, into our community. And as I said, most importantly, the department has, as of yesterday, commenced a very intensive rollout program alerting people to the dangers of digital violence, the risks it poses to their kids, to their neighbours, to their friends, what it looks like, what it means, how to recognise it, and most importantly, Madam Speaker, where to go for help. Thank you.
Member for Fanny Bay, what is your question?
Madam Speaker, my question is to our fabulous Treasurer. Treasurer, this year the CLP government set ourselves the task to make the Territory the best place to do business. To do this, we unveiled our Rebuilding the Economy strategy, a roadmap to cut red tape. Again, my favourite thing to do. To deliver regulatory reform and get more investors into the NT. Thanks to this decisive leadership of the CLP, the NT economy has gone from strength to strength, a far cry from the economic basket we inherited. Led by nation-leading reforms such as our payroll tax changes, the CLP has gotten out of the way and allowed businesses to flourish, which I can confidently say that people and small business in Fanny Bay electorate are very, very happy with. Treasurer, can you please update the House on the impact the Rebuilding the Economy strategy has had on the NT economy?
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Fanny Bay for the question. And I note that over the last few days, the member for Fanny Bay has been updating me on responses that she's got back from local business in her community and in her electorate of how the changes are having a positive effect on small and local businesses. And Madam Speaker, nothing is more important to me as the Treasurer and our government than getting our economy back on track. And it was only last year, Madam Speaker, we realised the extent of Labor's 8-year-long economic train wreck. An economy running off the rails because businesses were crying out for help and investors were actually fleeing. And Madam Speaker, we led the charge, putting the Territory's best foot forward and showing Labor what responsible economic management actually looks like. This started with putting small and medium businesses front and centre, Madam Speaker, implementing the highest payroll tax-free threshold in Australia. Because, Madam Speaker, it is these businesses, the mum and dad businesses, the many family businesses that are working hard to keep the doors open. And they're the people that we support, Madam Speaker, because they are the beating heart of our local territory economy. A great example is Wilson Diesel Services. A proud family-owned business is run by Managing Director Max and his wife Lisa Wilson, who I recently met in Tennant Creek. And for them, and nearly 70% of businesses in the Territory, this was a welcome relief from Labor's price gouging, seeing them paying zero on payroll tax, Madam Speaker. And extended to opening the doors to hundreds of our apprentices and trainees who are now building their bright career right here in the Northern Territory. And to date, Madam Speaker, I'm proud to announce that nearly 100 businesses have claimed the exemption under the apprentice and trainee wage exemption. That's more trainees and apprentices, which means more tradies for the Territory, Madam Speaker. Over $8 million in apprentice and trainee wages is so far exempt from payroll tax, meaning these businesses have collectively saved $440,000, Madam Speaker. And look what's happened. The cranes are back, Madam Speaker. Our population is back. Even the planes are coming back. And, Madam Speaker, confidence is back in the Northern Territory. Across our key industries of agriculture, tourism, defence, gas and mining, we are now driving jobs and investment into the Territory, not away from it, which was what the previous government was doing, Madam Speaker. And, Madam Speaker, the impact these reforms have had for our businesses and our economy cannot be overstated. These are the facts, Madam Speaker. Those opposite must face reality that under the Lawler, Files, Gunner Labor government, they are unable to manage the economy. But the CLP can, Madam Speaker, and we're turning it around.
Member for Guadja, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. Minister, a significant portion of the funding allocated in the Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence Strategy is going to unevaluated government programs instead of evidence-based, community-led programs. Minister, will you commit to supporting the sector's calls in supporting your programs to be evaluated by an independent body?
Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, the member for Goyja, for that question. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit flabbergasted, one of my favourite words, because there has been zero evaluation on most of the programs that were rolled out by those on the other side during their 8 years in government, Madam Speaker. Appalling behaviour. Money spent, not accounted for, money wasted. And I'm presuming the member for Goyja is referring to the very successful circuit breaker program, which is just about to celebrate in Alice Springs its first year. Its very first year of operation. And you know what, Madam Speaker? We've just had a 1.4% decrease in domestic, family and sexual violence across the Northern Territory, which is significant because we were really hoping to plateau it by the year 2030, but we're actually starting to see it come down. And you know what, Madam Speaker, where the biggest decrease is? Alice Springs, where circuit breaker has been running for 12 months. It's around about 30%, Madam Speaker. How phenomenal is that? So, yes, there is going to be a formal evaluation because we have now completed a year. We now have a year worth of data because you can't evaluate something, Member for Goyja, unless you've got the information to evaluate. So now we have that information and I can't wait to see the outcome of that report because the other thing, Madam Speaker, is I've actually been talking to my colleagues interstate who are working in this very, very challenging field and told them about our program, which is absolutely outcome focused as opposed to output focused, which is the most favourite thing of those on the other side when they were in government, and seeing true results. And they are very interested in seeing the outcome of the evaluation. And I'm really pleased to say that we are starting to see inroads in Katherine and also in the Barkly region. Best place to live, right? And a land of opportunities. And also, they're actually starting to make inroads into the Darwin-Palmerston region, which is probably one of the most challenging spaces because it's such a big space to cover. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that's been done in that space. And we will continue to fight the good fight. And every single program that we fund, Madam Speaker, every single program is being required to demonstrate they are delivering results.
not outputs, results. We are asking them to show how what they are doing is actually contributing to the decrease in domestic family sexual violence that we are starting to see. And if they are able to demonstrate that, we will continue to support them into the future.
Member for Gwaja, I should say, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, following on from your question, can you confirm that your evaluations will be independent from your own government department, and what are those timelines?
Minister for Prevention of Domestic Violence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What I can confirm is we're not going to waste $250,000 doing an external evaluation on a program where the evidence is clear.
Have you finished your...
Yes, I have.
You don't want to answer it? Okay.
Member for Drysdale, what is your question?
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister for Major Events. Minister, Territorians love their lifestyle and the events that bring people together, from local festivals to major national sporting fixtures, and in my electorate of Drysdale, we're eager to see both the economic, social and cultural benefits of more major events. We know events play a big role in supporting small businesses, increasing visitation and helping to keep our economy strong throughout the year. As we head into another big year of tourism, hospitality and events, can you update the House on how the Territory's event calendar is shaping up, what it means for local jobs and businesses, and how the government is ensuring these events continue to grow the Territory's reputation as the best place to live, work and visit?
Minister for Major Events.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for Drysdale. You're right, your community does know the impact that major events have on their lifestyle, but also for the businesses in your community. And of course, we know that under our government, events are back. They are stronger and they are smarter, and finally we are delivering the lifestyle that not only your community members in Drysdale, member for Drysdale, expect, but of course all Territorians expect. And Territorians, Madam Speaker, they know the difference between the old government and of course the new CLP government. Because under Labor, everything was the status quo, but we are not afraid to make changes on this side. We are refocusing what Labor let slide, and we're restoring the lifestyle in the Territory again. And this year, Madam Speaker, it's been all about action, certainty and security, and nowhere has that been clearer than in the 2025 events calendar. We have delivered the biggest year of motorsport in Territory history. I know people in Palmerston love their motorsport, member for Drysdale. We have had the supercars, the Red Centre Nats, Nitro Up North, Finke Desert Race, Chariots of Thunder and the MXGP returning to Australia for the first time in 24 years. Being in Darwin too for the first time. And let's face it, I can hear them over there all chiming in, but let's face it, if Labor were ever going to deliver the MXGP on their budget, then they were dreaming, because it was not going to happen. We fixed it, we delivered it, and it was a huge, huge success. Madam Speaker, we also brought the international cricket back to sell-out crowds at TIO Stadium, and we heard a lot about that this morning from the member for Sanderson, who's a huge cricket fan, just like many Territorians. We had Territory favourites have absolutely flourished under our government with the Luxor Festival. We doubled the numbers of people to the Luxor Festival by changing the night it was held and the location, which is a huge thing, right? We had that in November at our normal off-season time, which is normally quiet around town, and it was packed down there at the waterfront in November. Fantastic. Another one for you, member for Drysdale. Your electorate had the PGA Golf return to the Territory. I know the people in Driver love just sitting on their balconies watching that. Then they wander over, or they drive their golf carts and they go and have a feed or a beer if they want, watching the PGA. Not only did we have it, we also telecast it right across the country, and we had lots of views showcasing the Territory to the world. What's coming up next in my final few seconds is the Dolphins begin their 3-year NT home game deal. National attention, real economic dollars, and I'm confident they're going to give the Penrith Panthers a run for their money. We have 3 AFL games in the Territory. We have a 3rd day of supercar racing added to the calendar, and of course we're preparing to showcase our military history like never before, including opportunities around pitch black.
Member for Nightcliff, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Parks and Wildlife. Minister, gamba grass continues to pose an ever-growing environmental and fire risk to our national parks and communities. The Gamba Grass annual report released last week highlights the success of the Gamba Army in coordinating and assisting landowners and undertaking control work across our national parks. However, since the Gamba Army ceased operations, there has been a visible increase in gamba grass in Charles Darwin National Park, for example. Minister, and you may need to refer part of this question, I'm not sure. Minister, first, why has your government discontinued funding for this proven program, and what measures will replace this critical workforce in protecting our national parks and communities from gamba? And additionally and separately, can you guarantee that the NT government's $250,000 in annual funding for Litchfield gamba control is an ongoing commitment? Thank you.
Minister for Parks and Wildlife.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the question because, of course, we know that gamba grass is a huge problem in our national parks. We have seen it for decades, trying to eradicate it pretty much, Madam Speaker, and it's just been an ongoing battle. But we knew that under the previous Labor government, it was like a scattergun approach, which didn't work. So we've pulled our resources together with my colleague, the Minister for the Environment and Lands Planning, and he and my department work together now. We have a gamba grass coordinator who is full-time, who makes sure that either at Charles Darwin National Park or Litchfield National Park, which is crucial for our tourism, that we can look at, it might be really difficult to eradicate altogether, but I can tell you in the research that's just been done, there's been 90% of gamba grass now cleared, eradicated from the tabletop track in Litchfield, which is huge. And that's based on a whole heap of research that's done with a coordinated approach with lots of different agencies, scientists, etc. So it's about coming together. And I think, that work is ongoing. But as for the rest of the question, if it's okay, I'll hand over to the Minister for Lands Planning and Environment, who can add some towards the contribution.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the member for Nightcliff and thank you to Minister Boothby. In regards to the funding, Madam Speaker, our government continues to invest in gamba grass management on government-owned land, including vacant Crown land, which I'm responsible through the Lands Planning Ministry, including road reserves. During the 24-25 management season, approximately $2 million was invested in this program, Madam Speaker. The Gamba Grass Weed Advisory Committee continue to meet, and the Minister Boothby is absolutely right. We are working together like never before to ensure that we are working to eradicate where we can and obviously manage this infectious weed. The Gamba Grass Action Program provides ongoing support to landholders, offering advice, free herbicide and spray equipment loans across Darwin and Katherine regions. And by the end of the 24-25 season, over 3,000 landholders were engaged through the program. The 25-26 Gamba Action Program is scheduled to commence on the 28th of November, so we're just about there, Madam Speaker, 2 days to go. And the Weed Management Branch managed a targeted compliance enforcement program in the urban and peri-urban emergency response area. In the previous season, there have been 969 property inspections. This is something the member for Goyder is always on me about, Madam Speaker. He wants to know that there are properties being inspected and that the management is being done there.
Oh, sorry, take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, member for Nightcliff?
Thank you. It's just 110 relevance. I appreciate the answer so far, but I specifically wanted to know the Gamba Army, why was that program discontinued, and is there anything that's going to replace that workforce specifically?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the member. We are continuing, Madam Speaker, to invest in a range of groups right across the Northern Territory. We have the Gamba Litchfield Neighbours Project, which also includes a $20,000 grant for the Kumali Community Government Council to complete weed survey and development a weed management strategy. We are working, Madam Speaker, to ensure that we continue to manage this weed. Thank you.
Member for Goyder, what is your question?
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations. Minister, international trade and strategic partnerships are vital to unlocking new investment, strengthening regional cooperation and creating long-term opportunities for Territory businesses. Recent engagement has included high-level visits from key diplomatic partners, NT business representation at international events and ministerial delegations across Southeast Asia to advance cooperation in critical minerals, energy, education, agribusiness and aviation. Minister, can you update the Assembly on how international engagement is delivering tangible benefits for Territory businesses, jobs and investment, and outline what success looks like for Territory businesses and the Territory economy?
Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Member Fagoya, for your question. I know your interest in the work we're doing in this area is quite strong, and I'm really pleased to be able to update the Assembly as to what is happening in this space. Madam Speaker, it's really clear and very obvious to our Whanokirauo CLP government that the success of the Territory and our prosperity is absolutely inextricably linked to our region and the place that we play in that. And that is why over the past 15 months we have been restoring our focus on the international relationships that we need to rebuild and enable unlocking vital investment opportunities. That strengthening of regional cooperation is so critical to creating very long-term opportunities to Territory businesses. And Madam Speaker, since November 24, I've led targeted delegations to Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia and Japan, and each one of those were designed to advance practical cooperation in areas where our economies are naturally aligned. And these missions have focused very strongly on skills exchanges, international education, energy security, critical minerals, agribusiness, the digital economy, and aviation and renewables. And the work that we're doing in this space is really starting to pay off, Madam Speaker. We are delivering clear results. For example, in Japan, our largest trading partner, Team Territory, supported 18 Territory businesses, progressed major opportunities with INPEX, Osaka Gas and key investors in hydrogen, carbon capture and storage and future gas supply. There were also discussions with JOGMEC and Pasonic Energy, which have set in motion inbound investor visits and virtual showcases for our critical minerals sector. Commercial leads have been secured across agribusiness, space, investment and education. And Madam Speaker, I was delighted when I was in Denpasar recently to formally open a Territory partnership between an Indonesian butcher and a Territory cattle producer, which has this fabulous restaurant now, which is in Sanur. And if anybody's over there, I absolutely encourage you to go and visit this remarkable partnership. This is a real example of what is happening in this space. In Timor-Leste, our work has reinvigorated skills and education. It saw the return of the Darwin to Dili yacht race, and we have committed to do that into 2027. So for us, it means we're now export-ready businesses. We have diversified investments, strong regional partnerships and sustainable job creation, all really positive news for the Northern Territory and an absolute commitment to showing that this is the place to come and live, to work and invest. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Daly, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. Minister, it has now been more than 6 months since Darwin Private Hospital entered receivership and nearly 5 months since private maternity services ceased. In October, you assured Territorians that you were engaged directly with the receivers and current operators as well as the federal government, and that you would continue to engage with all interested parties. Given the ongoing loss of Territory families who can no longer access private health services, can you outline clearly with the dates, the timeline for the restoration of this service?
Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I know that the member for Daly struggles to understand what private business is all about, but here in Darwin, yes, there is a Darwin Private Hospital, Madam Speaker, and we do know that in June this year, Healthscope closed the private maternity service here in Darwin, and like everybody here, I'm extremely disappointed. Mothers, families are extremely disappointed that they no longer have that choice here in the Northern Territory. No longer have it here in the Northern Territory. But what I want to reassure everybody is that or perhaps just remind the member for Daly what has been going on, because we have spoken about this before. The Commonwealth are currently leading work with the receivers of Healthscope regarding the continued operations of the private hospitals right across Australia, Madam Speaker, including the Darwin Private Hospital. So that work is being led by the Commonwealth. What I can say is that we have recently met, I personally have recently met with the receivers of the private hospital, McGrath Nicol, as well as the CEO of Healthscope. And I've also spoken to Minister Butler about this, and what I can update the House with is that that receivership process is still underway. So I know the member for Daly struggles to understand this, but when a private company goes into administration and they're in the hands of receivers, this is not something that I can be directly lean into, other than to put pressure on them and have that conversation that when they do find a buyer for the private hospital, of course we want to have those conversations with them, because we want to see a private provider here in Darwin take on that Darwin private hospital and return maternity services back to the Northern Territory here in Darwin. We want families to have a choice. The most disappointing part of this, Madam Speaker, is that many families, and we know that there's been roughly around 250 births previously at the Royal Darwin at the private hospital in Darwin on an annual basis. Around about 60 of those families were affected by the closure. But the important part of this, Madam Speaker, is that all of those families were contributing through private health insurance. They no longer have that choice to give birth at the Darwin Private Hospital. So yes, we are having those conversations, Madam Speaker. Those conversations are continuing. Our officials are maintaining contact with the Commonwealth, who are directly in contact with the receivers. And I can assure you, we're keen to have that conversation with any new buyer to ensure maternity services return to Darwin.
Member for Wanguri, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Arts. Minister, there's been a lot of noise this year from the other side about the arts. The Labor opposition has made a number of claims that funding to the arts has been cut, or that the arts community is not being supported by this government. For those who haven't heard clearly the message or have missed the facts, can the Minister please clarify for the House what support our government is delivering for the arts in the Territory?
Minister for Arts.
Madam Speaker, and thank you, Member for Wangari, for the question. Yes, I am pleased to clarify for the House how we are backing the arts community in the Territory. Labor opposition has been out in the community and this House telling incorrect information about this government cutting funding for the arts. Madam Speaker, let me be clear. In 2024-25, our CLP government invested $7.84 million to support 201 arts activities, with more allocated for 2025-26, which is $7.932 million. In other words, there is no cuts. We also extend multi-year operational funding to 29 art organizations and added 6 new organizations, expanding opportunities across the Territory. Our arts organizations reach 261,000 audience members and employ more than 600 Territorians, engaging 12,000 artists and secure $23 million in leverage investment. Our CLP government continues to help artists and musicians develop their careers, with some now going global as well. Madam Speaker, like this government initiated like a music exports through the Music NT, invested like $100,000 last year and through the grants program, and we are seeing and giving that opportunity for the Territorians to take their music to the international level as well. Madam Speaker, it has indeed been a fantastic year for the arts and creative industries. Just some of the events our government has supported include Portrait of a Senior Territorian, Telstra National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Awards, Darwin Festival, Apex Conference and Impact Awards, the India Literary Awards, plus the prestigious Archibald Prize and Young Artists in Alice for the first time. Our art strategy reflects our government's commitment to all arts as a powerful force for enriching our lifestyle, rebuilding the economy and strengthening our communities. And speaking of communities, Madam Speaker, I have been out across the Territory, from Garpiviak to Gunbalania, Maningrida to Hermannsburg, Urimianga to Barkley, Big Rivers to Alice Springs. And I'm looking forward to visiting more next year.
Silence, please. Come
Just
on.
last week,
We're almost there.
I returned to Catherine and attended the meeting of Arts Professional Conference and Northern Territory Performing Arts Awards, which were held in Big Rivers for the first time. I would like to send another sincere congratulations to all the winners and finalists from the awards. Can I also take a moment to remind the House that tomorrow is Oz Music T-shirt Day, a celebration of Australian music. While I'm on my feet, I would like to inform the House that I have announced the expression of interest will be shortly opening for the newly established Ministerial Council Committee for the Arts as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the hour's up and I move that any further questions be placed on the written question paper.